All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything for the CrossFit Linchpin private track. Today is May 6th, 2021, joined by my wife Emily. Thank you so much for being here. Always
You're
a joy.
welcome.
I have to drag her kicking and screaming onto anything which involves filming, which is good. She doesn't seek out or crave the camera, but she is needed for some expert advice today because one of the questions has to do with gymnastics, and she was what was your gymnastics background?
I was a gymnast for 18 years. I was an elite level gymnast for 3, and then I got a college scholarship to the University of Washington and competed there for 4 years.
Not bad. So she can do some pull-ups. All right. So we will, and how many weeks pregnant?
31.
and
31.
and ready to have it be done and start the road to coming back after that. So we'll have to have you on again sometime in the future as the weeks continue to tick by. The modifications to movements are continuing to
Definitely slowing down.
to add up as well. I can finally start to beat her in some workouts. All right, so I'll handle the first most upvoted question, and then maybe we can dive into the gymnastics one, and if you so desire, I can release you back out into the wild. So the most upvoted question is from Jared P, and this is what he says. And I should be curious to hear what you have to say also. I just tested my max strict pull-ups, got 12. I couldn't do 1 when I started CrossFit 4 years ago. That said, what can I do to improve my chest-to-bar pull-up strength? It's the last few inches of that pull where I struggle. First of all, Jared, 12 is legit, by the way. 12 strict dead hang pull-ups. That is a heck of an accomplishment. You should be very proud of that, especially given the fact you said 4 years ago you couldn't do 1. I'm just trying to keep myself from going down a rabbit hole now. But what also jumps out at me is exactly that. Like, potentially it took you 4 years to get 12 going from 0. I think a lot of people these days have this science fiction desire to artificially speed up progress. Like, some things just take a long time to build, and just being dedicated and consistent is one of the pillars of actually achieving it. So you did that with the strict pull-ups. Now, when you say chest to bar, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you mean kipping chest to bar. So here are some things that popped into my head to help you develop that kipping chest to bar strength as well. Develop strict chest to bar. Now, and I mean that, I'll get to that in a second, but things that I would work on for you would be rowing and pulling strength in a variety of different planes or different directions. Barbell bent over rows in a variety of loadings, in a variety of repetition ranges. Dumbbell bent over rows. I'm a big fan of doing dumbbells compared to the barbell if you have the option to do both. You could do, if you have some bands, you could do strict pull-ups on the pull-up bar with as much of a band, the bare minimum band that allows you to do, maybe 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps, strict chest to bar pull-ups, so that they're really tough and challenging, but you can truly touch your chest to the bar with that band assist. And then with the goal of either doing more pull-ups with that band, right? Because if it's just barely enough help, then by the end of a set of 8 to 12, you're probably quite fatigued, and that band is now no longer enough for you to get, 35, for example. So even if with that same band you start to be able to do more strict banded pull-ups, you're on your way there. You could then knock down the resistance of the band, which would be good. Ring rows, love ring rows. And I would say do some ring rows with the toughest elevation possible, meaning your feet kicked out in front of you, maybe up on a box, for example. And what you could do with the ring rows is when your hands make contact with your chest on the ring row, hold it there. Like, really have your thumb in contact with your pec for like a 1/1000, 2/1000, 3/1000. So you not only get a pull, but you get like a static isometric hold at the top as well. And those isometric holds are fantastic at developing strength also. You could add another layer to that as well, and you have a really nice slow negative from the top. So you could not only have an isometric hold on those ring rows, but then instead of having your arms getting back to full extension take 1 second, have it take 5 seconds, and that will build a lot of good pulling strength also. The strict pull-ups that you might want to try to develop for a little bit of variance would be with a supinated grip, so basically your palms facing you on the pull-up bar, and it's a little easier to get the chest on a strict pull-up contact with the bar with that supinated grip versus a pronated grip with your palms facing out. So I would go ahead and try that. You could do that with the banded pull-ups also. I would also, again, working on the static holds, as part of our accessory work, every now and then you'll see to have your chin above the pull-up bar and try to accumulate, obviously you don't have to do it unbroken, but accumulate 2 minutes with your chin above the pull-up bar. That will get you ferociously strong as well. So make sure you're not neglecting that part of the accessory work that comes up every now and then. And then also seated pull-ups. So, if you put like a barbell in a squat rack at the appropriate height, now secured so it doesn't fall out and bonk you on the head, but you put it in a squat rack at the appropriate height that you can sit your butt down on the ground with your legs out in front of you. You're kind of in an L-sit position. You have your arms extended up. They're fully locked out at the perfect height just to grab that barbell, which now is acting as a pull-up bar. And then while keeping your body in that L position, your heels stay on the ground. You row, and basically you do pull-ups, but even just having your legs out there on the ground makes it a little kinder than a regular feet off the ground pull-up would be, and you can start to work some assisted chest to bars, so to speak, in that arena as well. So that would be it. Anything else you recommend?
I would just wonder how much of it is strength versus technique as well. The chest to bar pull-up is slightly different than the regular pull-up, and I think it is so important when we talk about, keeping good tension. So that means no breaks in your knees and your feet, which is so hard for so many people. So if you're holding good positions like in a hollow body when you're practicing on the ground, that translates to the bar. If you get to the bar and you break and you're constantly bending your knees and kind of flailing around, you're losing some momentum. So if you're doing kipping, some of that momentum goes away, and it might just be enough to get you up to the top of the bar. And your grip width needs to change on a chest to bar pull-up as well. If you're trying to keep your hands in the same place that you would do a regular pull-up, it makes it much more challenging. You need to use a little bit of a different muscle set and clear some room for your elbows. So, I would wonder, because 12 max strict pull-ups is a lot. I don't know that I can do 12 strict pull-ups. So taking a look at your technique, making sure you're nice and tight, playing with your grip width, seeing if that helps at all. I would explore those as well.
A potential rabbit hole, which is fantastic. And you're completely correct, and feel like you are talking to me directly, because my body is broken every time that I do chest to bar pull-ups, and I lose, I dissipate energy and power into the atmosphere instead of it going to me doing another pull-up. And, Emily's completely correct. So while everything that I just spoke of there would be developing more contractile potential, so to speak, the musculature, right? She spoke more to the body position and the technique, and which is mission critical, and brings up an interesting point. Let's say that we got, because you might have, like she said, more strict pull-ups than she does, but there's a good chance, in her non-pregnant state, that she can do more kipping chest to bar pull-ups than you can, even though you quote-unquote have more pure strength. And so therein lies a great question. Why is that? And that, again, going back to like being a CrossFit nerd, is, CrossFit's definition of strength. Strength is the productive application of force. And so you might be able to apply more force to the bar, but she's able to apply less force in a more productive manner. And productive means doing what you actually wanted to accomplish, kipping chest to bar pull-ups. So with quote-unquote less strength, but better technique and efficiency, she may be therefore able to do more kipping chest to bar pull-ups than you do, which is not fair. But the cool thing is, if with that strength base that you currently have and that you will be continuing to develop, you also give adequate time to your technique, that could advance the number of chest to bar pull-ups that you do by leaps and bounds. So, as always, not only improving the contractile potential of your muscles, but then the manner in which you move, efficiency and technique, that's going to get you to the finish line. And not just get you to the finish line because it's cool to do more chest to bar pull-ups in a workout. Yes, that's great for technique. But paying attention to like the positions that she just mentioned and having a mindful eye as to how your body's moving will help with your sustainability with CrossFit. Moving well is going to help you be doing this 5, 10, 15 years from now versus moving in a inefficient in the best case scenario, potentially injurious in the worst case scenario. That's what inefficient or bad technique could give you. So always be mindful of how you're moving, not only for the clock, but for your health.
Yeah, I think a lot of people put emphasis on technique on the barbell, but when it comes to the pull-up bar, it's how can I get my chin above the bar? How can I get to my chest to the bar in any way possible? And there's just often limbs everywhere. And the concept of keeping everything tight together is not to make it look pretty. It does have value, and especially, like you said, that you don't want to get injured. And if you're loose and kind of flailing all over the place, it does open up, potential for a shoulder injury.
And I've been guilty of it as well, so I'm not throwing stones at anybody that I have not been there. I think all of us, if we were honest with ourselves, at the end of, let's say you're doing Fran or whatever it is, right? And you're just at about your max limit and you need to get 3 more pull-ups to end the round. Those 3 pull-ups would most likely not be categorized as poetry in motion. They would be this massive, bent at the knee, scorpion kick, everything you've got, just whipping yourself around. That, okay, yes, maybe you beat your last time in the workout and you hung on for those 3 pull-ups. But I bet if you had a video of yourself and you looked back and you said, is this what's going to get me to the finish line 2 decades from now? The answer would most likely be no. And so that's an interesting mind shift, a mind state to shift a little bit, which is sometimes, although the clock is wonderful and getting a PR is wonderful, the more intelligent decision is when you feel yourself losing those positions, stop. Hop off the pull-up bar, drop the barbell, and give yourself whatever period of time is needed to regain your composure, to regain your positions, and that's when you should hop back up and get those last 3 pull-ups. And if that results in not getting a PR, whoop-de-doo. I'd rather see you move in a sustainable way than just get a PR today. That'd be kind of it. Yeah. Okay. Excellent question, Jared. Moving on, do you want to do the gymnastics one, or do you want me to do one more?
Sure, it doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll do one more question because the next one's not a super long one. This is from an individual with a strong name, Patrick S. All right. Patrick's question is not me, by the way. Patrick's question is, basically, for those of us who don't have a barbell, talking about the limited equipment option crew, the zombie apocalypse team, how can we use D-balls or sandbags on heavy days? Maybe it's a 5x5 back squat or it's a clean and jerk, get the same heavy stimulus. So, first of all, I've said this before and I mean it. If you are fortunate enough to have a sandbag, a D-ball, maybe you've got something really cool that most people don't have, like a yoke, you are always authorized to throw that in and to use it and to enjoy it. But I may not program a yoke in the workout because that will alienate 97% of the people following, the program. But so my goal is to educate everybody to understand the intent of the workout, what we have going on that day, and then you can look around your garage, your gym, your whatever, and go, oh, you know what? Today calls for a barbell, but I've got this cool piece of gear. I'm going to go ahead and use that and still totally accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish today. So if you do have D-balls, sandbags, things like that, you can throw them in any time. But specifically your question about a heavy day, so for example, just a few days ago or last week or whatnot, we had that classic heavy day, which was power clean, 4 sets of 3, front squat, 4 sets of 2, squat clean, 4 sets of 1. Well, if you still had those other implements on that day, that would be a perfect day. Instead of the power cleans with the barbell or dumbbells, sandbag ground to over the shoulder. There's your power clean. And for the front squat, yeah, it doesn't look exactly the same, but you're not going to be shortchanged if you take a heavy sandbag or D-ball, you bear hug it on the front of your body, and you do some squats like that. The squat clean would probably be similar but a little bit more challenging with a D-ball or a sandbag because you could still get the same range of motion. If I've got a really heavy sandbag that's on the ground, I'll go ahead, have to, bend down, squat down, pick it up, shift it around a bit, then I'll have to pass below parallel to lap it properly and then stand up. So yes, I got it from the ground, I passed below parallel, and I stood up. So mission accomplished, it would work well. But that squat clean with the sandbag, while it's going through the same range of motion as a barbell, I am opening and closing my hip, but much more slowly than the explosive nature that you would with a barbell. So it's similar but different, but you're still achieving fitness. It's awesome for variance. I would not have any problem with not touching the barbell that day and doing heavy sandbag squat cleans at all. And if and maybe we get farmer's carries with dumbbells. You know what? I know it's not the exact same, but if you want to bear hug a D-ball or a sandbag and do some walks with that, trust me, if you've ever done that, you'll know that your grip and forearms are burning, even though you're not gripping dumbbells. You won't be shortchanged. Very taxing in the midline and lungs as well. If you don't have a heavy enough sandbag or D-ball to totally replicate, maybe you've got a 100-pound D-ball or 150-pound D-ball, right? And on that day that I just talked about, it's 4 sets of 2 on the front squat. And you're like, well, yeah, bear hugging a 150-pound D-ball is challenging, but for a 2, that's not really enough. So am I getting the stimulus that I should right there? Totally understand, and there would be nothing wrong in that day to now, instead of making it 4 sets of 2, which if you had a barbell, you would make the loading appropriate enough that each one of those sets of 2 was a challenge in and of itself, but maybe you can't do that with your D-ball. So now don't worry about the 2s and just say that you're going to do 4 sets of reps bear hugging that D-ball or sandbag for whatever is a challenging set. So maybe it's 4 sets of 11. Again, you're going to be just fine doing that every now and then, and as a matter of fact, I think you'll benefit in the long run from the variance of using that odd object, even though you deviated not in the form of the movement today, but in the rep scheme. You'll be totally okay. So you can play those games as well. I've got some sandbags out there that I love, and I wish I should touch them a bit more, quite frankly, but I get lazy. And what I do like to do every now and then is I've got a reverse hyper out there, which is that the pad or the platform on the reverse hyper is probably just under my chest level, and I'll take a heavy sandbag every now and then and just do some, maybe on a clean and jerk day, I'll do some loads. So I'll pick the sandbag up off the ground, load it up onto the platform, and then push it back down onto the floor. So with a heavy sandbag and my terrible shoulders, I'm not going overhead. So I would get my pressing on that day in a different manner. I might do some dumbbell bench press or something like that. If you do have, and I've seen some people do it, I'm insanely jealous. If you do have the shoulder flexibility to go overhead, probably not with a sandbag, but with a D-ball, which is more rigid, and you've got a, 100-pound D-ball, and you can bring it from the ground to your shoulder and then push press it overhead with that narrow grip, and you're going to do clean and jerks that way instead of a 135 barbell, I think you are going to be doing fantastic. I mean, I would not discourage anybody from doing that. So if you're lucky enough to have those toys, 100% always authorized. Have a blast. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything I wanted to do. Anything on that?
No.
Sandbags are awesome. I wish everybody had one. I really do. I know everybody's budget's different, but in the grand scheme of things, they are relatively economical, quite frankly, especially compared to a D-ball, because a D-ball, it gets shipped to you the weight that it is. So if you buy a 150-pound D-ball, you have to pay for the shipping of a 150-pound object, but a sandbag comes empty. So you just get a canvas or a nylon bag, which doesn't weigh that much, pay for the bag, but then the shipping's not that bad at all. Then you get some beach sand or dirt or whatever you can and fill it up. If you can get one, absolutely fantastic. Great. Let's dive into the gymnasty question. Let's see here. Let's go down a fun path. And it was a fascinating question, quite frankly. All right, so this is from Chris R. The article, he linked to an article that I guess is from the New York Times that said, "What if everything we know about gymnastics is wrong?" And this is what Chris wrote. The article linked below makes an argument that our current model of developing elite gymnasts is broken, and that it might be possible to continue the sport at the elite level longer than people think, and to train in a way that avoids burnout. Do you see a possible correlation to the youth movement we see in CrossFit with 14, 15, 16-year-old kids training at incredibly high volumes at an early age? I'd be interested in your wife's thoughts on the gymnastics aspect. So, nothing was wrong with gymnastics, right? It was kind of smooth sailing.
Yeah. Some of these articles are so hard for me to read, as all of this stuff with gymnastics has kind of broken into the media in the last couple of years. I'll just start by saying anything that you hear through the media and these women stepping forward, it is absolutely true. I witnessed all of it. I experienced all of it, the emotional, physical, and mental abuse that happens in the sport it's everywhere, and it's still very prominent in the sport, unfortunately. I won't speak to the sexual abuse side because I didn't experience that or see that, but I can see how it was perfectly set up. So, I mean, these things happened across the country in so many clubs that, I had friends in. And when we all kind of gathered together in college, we all had a lot of stories to share, and it's really too bad. I do think gymnastics is broken. I think a lot of youth sports are broken, and I put that on the coaches. I think we have so many terrible coaches out there that feel that coaching means you need to break down a child so that you have some sort of power over the top of them, instead of actually coaching in a positive, uplifting way. It's so odd to me, especially for whatever reason, gymnastics has a lot of male coaches, and they just belittle these children so to break them down so much that there's a fear in them that they'll do whatever is asked of them. They will train through injuries. They will train on broken bones. They will train with empty stomachs. And it's terrible, and it does need to change. Where else could I go with this?
With regards to the burnout, you were saying that they have no sense of recovery or nutrition, or a lot of these poor little girls are just frail.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the coaches. I don't think these coaches know how to recover an athlete, how to teach about true health and wellness and diet. If you're an elite athlete, you should be eating and recovering a certain way. That's not happening. And
all that matters is how you look in a leotard.
How you look in a leotard, yep. And so your body weight is so focused on, and I know that it is starting to change, especially as the skills get bigger. You just can't do some of these skills on these tiny, frail bodies, but it's still super important. And there was always this spoken about rule that a judge is going to judge you harsher if you look fat in a leotard. And that was talked about often, and it was true. Even
if you executed the skills the same.
Exactly. And so, if you're not eating properly and you're not fueling your body, what does that do to not just your muscles, but also your bones? And so you get to puberty when you start to try to grow, and you've got all these brittle bones, and kids are breaking. I just remember our gym was absolutely riddled with broken heels and broken ankles because the impact, and no one was recovering and no one was eating well. It was terrible. Everyone was in a cast, but then the cast was only on for so long because then it was time to get back out and do what needed to be done. And I think the burnout comes, you lose the love of the sport. And so, and it's not just because you've been training really hard, it's because you've been beaten down so so severely mentally that you lose your self-esteem, you kind of lose your sense of who you are, and then you don't want to you don't want to do it anymore. And I certainly experienced that in high school. I was really over it. I was so close to getting a college scholarship that I did stick it out. I walked away from the sport my sophomore year in high school, and thankfully I had parents who stepped back and were pretty uninvolved. Not meaning they didn't support me, but they let me have freedom of choice. So I walked away, and then I came back on my own accord, and then I found my love for the sport again in college, and it had been missing for 6-7 years because college became a positive environment. They knew that they were dealing with women, and we only had 4 years left, and then we were going to be done and enter into society. So they protected us and coached us in a much better manner.
And the burnout piece, then that begs the question, because historically, from my experience speaking with you and other gymnasts, is to be an elite level gymnast, you cannot live a balanced life. You have to forego most of the social pleasures and birthday parties and movies because you're in the gym, and that begs the question, is that necessary? And then you who was that? You said there was some gymnast that only left the gym for...
Oh, yeah. It was just, I think in that article it pointed to one of the elite level gymnasts had only been out of the gym for something like 4 days. And she was 19 years old from the time she started to go on like a family vacation. And that's heartbreaking. And then a question, would you recommend gymnastics for children after your experience? I don't know. That's such a hard question for me to answer because it is such a wonderful sport and it does teach so many wonderful foundational things for life,
but at a cost.
And it's not just a cost for the child, it's a cost for the family, and it's a cost for the parents, because I spent more time with my coaches and my teammates than I did with my own parents and my own siblings. I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know that you need to be in the gym 8 hours a day. If you were better prepared, if you were recovered well, could you only spend, even 4 hours a day is a long time, and I just don't know how you get around something like that. There's so many skills to learn, and I think if you've never done the sport and you watch it on TV, it probably looks super easy, and you can't quite appreciate what it is that you're watching. But the amount of repetitions that goes into these skills, you have to put in the numbers, and there's so many, all the events are so different that each of them needs attention and time. And it takes a long time to learn some of the skills. Sometimes years you'll be working on something, and finally after 2 years, you master it enough to have it be okay to put in competition, and then you want it to now try to perfect it. So everything takes time, but I do think that the sport is broken and leaves a lot of room for improvement. I think youth sports in general, we have boys and they're involved in all sorts of different things. We try to let them do everything. But I think parents need to take a giant step back. I was sitting at a practice listening to some of these parents, and it is heartbreaking that they not only then are being coached by their coaches on the field, but then they go home and they talk about it, and their parents critique them and tell them all the things that they could improve on, or even the things that they did well on, instead of letting that relationship be between them and the coach. And I think parents should be involved when, when there's stuff happening. It's like, it's not okay for you to speak to my child that way. That's when a parent needs to get involved. But I don't think that you need to be involved telling them, this play, you should do X, Y, and Z. It just, you're going to burn your child out. And I don't think it should be talked about at the dinner table. I think you should tell your child that you love watching them, that you're super proud of them, check in, make sure they're having fun, and then let that be their thing.
In straight talk as well, an interesting thing was, and all of us are guilty of this, right? We all think we're far more intelligent and savvy, even in realms that we've never had any experience in. And so a lot of this might be uncomfortable to hear, but all of the, I was just going to say a lot of the other parents, but I'll use the word all of the other parents that were involved in that conversation that Emily had none of them were collegiate athletes on like a full scholarship. Not a single solitary one. Yet all appeared to be quote unquote experts at what it takes to train to achieve
And
that level.
not even just that, none of them even work out to this day, so none of them are physically active and can even remember what it's like to be physically active currently. It's like in the 8th grade, I ran track, and then they think that they're a bit of an expert on youth sports. It's very bizarre. And I think there's pressure for every sport is the most important sport. Every coach wants their sport to be the most important thing. And I'm seeing so many kids having to choose to do one sport really early. And I'm wildly against that for the boys, because there's no reason that they need to just play whatever. So we don't even do a fall season and a spring season. They get to pick one season to do a sport. And if a coach ever gave them a hard time, because all the seasons overlap, right? So basketball overlaps with, soccer, and I would step in if a coach was giving them a hard time, because they don't get to dictate what my child is doing. I'm the parent, so I will take the child to practice, and I want them to do as many things as possible for as long as possible.
And you got to keep it fun, and I think that was another thing, looping back to the conversation with the other parents, was what they potentially didn't realize that they might be doing, that Emily said, you're going down a dangerous road, is the way that you're conducting yourself of being, let's just categorize it as a highly over-involved parent, is you will be the reason your child potentially burns out and hates sports or hates showing up to practice or hates the game and just wants to quit. And she said, because she'd actually seen that happen with, you can imagine that some parents are way over involved with their young gymnasts, and that is all they talk about all the time. The next meet, and you didn't do this, and you should be working on this, and suddenly they're like, screw this. I don't want anything to do with that. So
I also don't understand how people have enough time to sit at a 3, 4, and 5 hour practice. I just feel like, don't you have other things that you need to be doing? I know I do. And shouldn't our goal be to set a foundation of exercise for these children, and that when they're done with their sports, that they still want to be active human beings for as long as they possibly can in their lives? And I think that's what's too bad about, of all of my teammates, and there was probably about 16 of us that grew up together, and most of them quit in high school. I think I'm the only one that still works out to this day. They all hate exercise. They hate sports. They hate being in the gym. They are so broken and burnt out, and that's really unhealthy, and it's really unfortunate.
Well, I think that's about that, I would say. Thank you. You can retire to your regular life if you so choose. I was never an elite gymnast. I know that's shocking to everybody. But I can share some similar stories from my time in the military of just negative association. I despise the water. I despise it. Swimming, to me, I would rather jump off a cliff. And if the water is anything other than wonderfully warm, I don't want to go in a lukewarm pool, ocean, lake. It just immediately sends bad memories into my head, and I don't care if I never swim another day in my life. So there can be some, if you overdo something in some particular negative way, it might be your little buddy for the rest of your life. So just keep in mind with your kids, you run that risk, and that relates right to kind of what Chris was saying. Like, is it possible that this could be happening with children doing CrossFit at an early age? And I can certainly see how that could happen, right? Because people, which is great, it's great that people are crazy about CrossFit and passionate about CrossFit if it's tempered properly and if it's given the proper boundaries. But, we all know that there are some people, CrossFit's obviously a huge part of my life, that's all they talk about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if they then suffocate their kids with that, I don't see that working out well long term. So anyway, that's that. Okay, next question from Philip I. Philip, where are you? Down near the end. Okay, here we go. Very kind words, Philip. I appreciate it. Philip says, it's a privilege to have someone so adept at coaching and programming be so adept at coaching and programming for mere mortals. Why are you so interested in coaching and programming for us when other coaches are more interested in elite athletes? Cool question. Excellent question. I debated this heavily because I know why in my heart and my soul. I have a tough time articulating it. And I didn't know whether I should script something out or not. So, I had bullet points I wanted to hit, so it'll be a mixture of both. First of all, I have absolutely no desire to coach elite athletes. None. There's, I don't know. It doesn't speak to me in any way, shape, or form. I love watching them on TV and YouTube. I love seeing what they can accomplish. I very much enjoy watching the games and top open performances and whatever it is. Great. I really enjoy it. But I don't want that to be why I get up in the morning. Okay, so I am 100% doing what I should be doing with my life, like my purpose, my calling, if you will. And not to be corny, but I really mean it. And that is helping, if you want to use the term regular folks, I'm good with it. Regular folks achieve health, fitness, and do that for long-term wellness as well. It is much more fulfilling to me to, hear somebody that after 2, 3, 4 months got a set of 10 or 15 unbroken double unders. That fires me up and fills me with pride way more than hearing that an elite athlete took their back squat from 475 pounds to 500 pounds. You could hey, finally broke the 500-pound barrier. Great, don't get me wrong, great, but I'm way more excited about this other individual that got 10 unbroken double unders, and that's not a judgment call. That's just my personal opinion. There's obviously a tremendous amount of coaches that are all in with the elite athletes, and we need them, because I like watching them, but it's just not, it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't do it for me at all. And on top of that, there's another aspect of what we have at Linchpin, which I don't think you would get on the elite side of the house either, and that's the community aspect. If you get, in my opinion, a large number of people, mere mortals, to use Philip's words, not mine, regular people, all driving towards a common goal of improving their health and fitness, and then you cultivate a culture in those people of pursuing that goal and helping each other and supporting each other positively, with integrity, with humility, with kindness, well then a group of quote-unquote common people becomes a very uncommon community, and uncommon in just how uplifting and phenomenal it is. And that's what we've developed at Linchpin, and I don't know if I could get that anywhere else. I really don't. And that's what we have developed and created and continue to develop and create. Again, that calls to me and speaks to me more so than putting 2 kilos on an elite athlete snatch any day of the week, no doubt about it. And then the stories that are shared on the Private Track Facebook page and all that every single solitary day is never-ending constant motivation and reassurance that I'm exactly where I should be, precisely where I should be, helping all of you in the community, and all of you don't realize how much you help me and give me fulfillment. So it's a two-way street. So, Philip, I appreciate it, but quite frankly, you couldn't twist my arm to go in the other direction. No doubt about it. Regular folks are cool. Scaling is cool, and that's what we do. Here's a great example. So these aren't just empty words, right? And anyone who's in the Private Track Facebook group saw this happen within the last 7 calendar days. We got a longtime member named Adrian, and not Adrian Boston, by the way, Adrian, and recently lost his job, fell on hard times, and his most recent payment, $10 payment to the Linchpin Private Track, it got rejected. His card got declined. And so, he had a couple weeks left in his subscription before that ended. And so he wrote basically a farewell post in the Private Track Facebook group of saying how much he's enjoyed it, like all the good stuff that's happened, that, it's with a heavy heart, unfortunately, that he has to leave because he's fallen on these hard economic times. He'll be training on his own. When things turn around, you can be darn sure that I'll be back, all that good stuff. The response from the community, with no input from me, this is just how our community rolls. He had so many people reaching out and saying, there's no way that you're leaving, my friend. We're going to create a sponsorship, a program. We're going to pay your membership. I had more emails. I eventually had to tell people in the emails, like, hey, we've already got his next 1 year paid for in full, so you're good. Like, I had to turn people away and say, hey, in case this happens to another member, I'll keep your contact information. But that's the sort of culture that we've created, and I wouldn't get that working with one or two elite athletes. And nothing could replace that by a long shot. And then even in that same thread that happened on the Facebook group where, within a 10-minute time frame, he went from, sorry, I have to go, to boom, your next full year is paid for. Another one of our members is a recruiter and reached out to him and was like, hey, look, here's my email. Send me your resume. I'll put it out there and we'll see if we can't even find you another job. So we've created an ecosystem that not only truly helps each other out and kept other members around, but potentially could lead to somebody getting their next job. The level of fulfillment I get from doing what we're doing with Linchpin is really difficult to articulate and describe. So once again, Phil, I wouldn't trade anything, quite frankly. So
You wouldn't be as fulfilled if you took a phone call from a emotional athlete about how they went sideways in the open.
Oh my goodness. I just know, some of those elite athletes, I don't, again, God bless and love watching them. I don't want to deal with the drama either.
There is a lot of emotion as
she
a
can
former
speak
competitor. Even, you put so much time and effort and then something doesn't go as planned. There's a lot of emotion there, and if you've been working with somebody, that's your go-to person. So they get to hear all of your tears, anger, frustration.
Event 4 didn't go well. My life's over.
I'm not sure that's the best role for...
Yeah, I don't think that's what I was put on this earth to deal with. So I'm where I should be. Final question is from Luis. And where was it here? It was about active recovery. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. From Luis. If you were to do some active recovery on Thursdays, something to help improve your recovery while moving around, what would you do? I take a full rest day on Sunday, but like to move around a bit on Thursdays. I know that you take full rest days, but there are certainly good things to say about active recovery. What are your opinions on this? So, yes, for sure, I am a fan of the full recovery. Even though, I'll be honest, like active recovery, it's a thing for a reason, because it works. So active recovery versus just passive recovery is you're gonna move your body for a period of time. This is a general statement, but probably somewhere between 15 and 40 minutes. I know that's a big window, but somewhere in there, 15 and 40 minutes, you're going to move your body for active recovery. Low intensity, you're going to break a sweat. You're not necessarily looking to make it another workout. It shouldn't be strenuous. Yeah, it should be low impact, low loading if you are using loading. And the goal is just to help flush out some of the waste products that have accumulated in your muscles and that are helping make you sore. And moving like that will aid in recovery and have you feeling better, most likely sooner than a full passive recovery. So active recovery is a very good thing. I would embrace things such as the bike or the rower that move yourself through a nice range of motion, have a nice cardiovascular component to it, but they don't have any impact to it in any way, shape, or form. And then you could pair it with something based upon what you wanted to do that day, but even something very light, a PVC pipe overhead squat for some reps. On the bike or rower for a while, PVC pipe overhead squats, or an empty barbell hang squat snatch for a low number of reps. You get just enough loading to feel the bar and to move it around, and get your body into some good positions. and stimulate yourself just a bit, but you're not going to be sore. You're not going to be feeling beat up the next day. And active recovery is a wonderful thing to do. I would just say, don't be a crazy CrossFitter and without realizing it, turn it into a workout. Then your progress will be backsliding instead of moving forward. But done intelligently, done within the scope of what it's supposed to be, absolutely fantastic. And I will say, one of the things that I did, and I'm not going to categorize this as active recovery, but as I sit here and we do this talk, I'm standing. So I'm at my desk. I've got a standing desk, which I've had for probably 2 years, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
A couple years? Maybe three. And so, unless we're, sitting at the dinner table, I basically stand every single day, all day long. I'm very, very rarely seated. Even these days, I've got so used to standing that if we go to our kids' sporting games, I don't bring a chair. If we're going to be there for a couple hours, I just stand. And so I'm not calling that active recovery.
On the contrary, I'm dying.
Oh, stand. Well, I'm not pregnant either.
Even in regular life, though, I should probably practice.
Well, what's funny is when I used to sit at a desk my entire life, and when I got this standing desk, I got one that's motorized that can go up and down, right? Because my thought was, there's no way I'm going to be able to pass the entire day standing. So I got a chair, and it's like I'll do these spurts where I'll sit for an hour, maybe stand for 20, 30 minutes, and I'll do this interval training, so to speak. And I just started standing, and I don't know how long the quote-unquote break-in period was, but I was definitely uncomfortable, and my hips and my back would hurt, and it was just as sad as it is tiring standing. But it didn't take too long. But in short order, it got to the point now where, I don't even have a chair in my office anymore. I haven't had a chair for quite some time. I just stand 8 to 10 hours at my desk or whatever it is. And now it's easy. And what's really weird is I do think that has aided to some degree in, and I don't want to use the word recovery, but I feel it is a better, healthier position than if I was just to sit on my butt with none of my musculature engaged, slumped over at a keyboard for 8 hours a day. So something as simple as just standing, I personally think for me has made a big difference. And now it's shocking, but I don't want to say it's uncomfortable to sit. That's not true. But a lot of times it is, again, like at a kid's sports game, I find it preferable to stand, and sitting just feels, I don't know what the right word is. It just feels like I'm shortchanging myself, but it's good. But yeah, and I remember in years gone by, before I got the standing desk, if we were going to go to our kids' sports games for 2 hours, you better believe I was bringing a chair, because after 30 minutes, I'd be like doing some hip circles, and my low back is stiff. And now that doesn't happen at all. It's fantastic. So
I still crack the chair open.
Again, you've got the pregnancy card. Play that.
Even when I'm not pregnant.
Play that for as long as you can. So that's it. Any other thoughts? Pearls of wisdom?
I don't think so.
Okay. Another reason why I don't, even though I understand the benefits of active recovery, why I don't do it, and everyone's life's a little bit different. On the days, like today's a Thursday, that I don't have to work out, I am somewhat of a workaholic, and knowing that I have that extra hour to get ahead and work is a wonderful blessing. So that's a nice thing that I look forward to on Thursday. I'm like, okay, I get an extra hour. I can get ahead. So that's it. Thanks, of course, for being awesome. Hope you enjoyed another Ask Me Anything. Enjoy your rest day today, be it active or passive, and we'll talk again.